And welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for a webinar day. I'm Anya Chrysanthemum. I'm Chief Communications Officer here at Inugo. And joining me today is Leah Fellows. So Leah is the founder and owner of Blue Gypsy Inc. Leah works with home builders across the United States to help them find and train their OSC, so online sales counselors. So today we're going to be talking about how can you engage your customers both online and offline. As you guys are well aware, today's customers are much more knowledgeable, they're much more savvy, they already have a lot of information coming in. So we're going to talk about best practices for engaging them. We're also going to talk about how do we create an ecosystem where we utilize both technology as well as people? And how do we create an ecosystem where you have a seamless handoff process from technology to people? We're going to talk a little bit about AI, and we're going to look into the future of what we expect as far as AI and how it's going to affect both online sales counselors, salespeople, as well as the buyers. So with that, let's jump right in. So Leah, take it away.
I love this. And it may end up turning into a debate between myself and Anya about human versus technology, AI versus humanity, but we'll see if we get there, right? Because we always have a fun time when we talk about that. And one of the things that, we want to talk about first is the old way versus the new way, right? Because I feel like some builders are still stuck in the old way. And when I say the old way, I mean, I've been doing this for 18 years now. I started out in online sales in 2007. And back then, we did not have the technology that we have today. We did not have these rich websites that were lead generators. We did a lot of this paperwork instead. I mean, this reminds me of, I started out on site before I was ever online. And Anya, I'm sure you can identify with this. We had folders and files, and we didn't have CRM systems, and we had paper registration cards and all sorts of crazy stuff. Back in the day, we were really supposed to drive the traffic to the sites. We didn't want to provide a lot of information to the buyer. Our websites were like billboards on the internet. They did not have a lot of information, and there was not a lot of digital marketing around it. And we had gated content, which we'll talk about more. It was not user friendly. And now I'm going to let Anya talk a little bit more about the new way, because and the new way isn't that new, guys. We've been doing this for 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years now of really needing to provide tools online for our buyers. So Anya, take it away a little bit and give a little overview of the new way of buying.
Sure. So this is where Inugo comes in. This is where we help builders provide that engaging online experience. So one of the things that we always advocate for at Inugo is to make sure that you're providing interactive online tools. So I'm talking about interactive. I mean, it's not just static images where, you're looking at pictures of the home, but you're able to not only customize the home with the options, with the selections, with the colors that your customers that can visualize themselves living in that home, but they can actually walk through 3D model of that home online in real time. And that engagement drives your dwell time online. We see that customers stick around much longer. And in turn, it also generates loads of data, which we all know we need data for insights and eventually AI. Another thing that I'd love to see builders utilize online is not just limiting it to the home itself, but showing off the entire community. Remember that people buy new construction because they want the neighborhood, they want the amenities. So make sure that you are showing off your virtual tours of the entire community. What can your customers expect when they actually move into the home?
the tools are so important, everything that you're talking about, and being able to present a good view online to encourage them to go to the community, but we're not driving them down this singular path like we used to, right? And I said it a little bit, when I started, content was locked up, it was gated. I remember in order to see floor plans on the website, people had to enter their information. And it wasn't just once, it was every time they returned. I can't tell you how many mean, nasty email addresses I got that were words I shouldn't repeat here. My sailor brain would, right? And yeah, Sarah just said builders are doing that again. Do not gate your content. You are pissing off your buyers. You're trying to create a seamless experience for your buyers. You're investing in all these tools that are on your website to give them a picture of who you are. And you're so concerned about whether or not they're going to give you information, you're locking it up behind doors. You need to give buyers, not only do you need to give them options, you need to give them unlocked doors, because when they are ready, they're going to give you the information, and you have other ways to gain that information from them by doing things like creating a favorites section. If they want to create their own area to save all the work they've done with those interactive floor plans, if they want to create a login, once they're invested in your website, then they will buy into the idea of giving you their information. Have things that are replicable. Yes, they can view this floor plan and interact with it and play with it. And then when they go to download it as a brochure, a digital brochure that they want to share with their wife or their husband or their best friends, then ask them for that information, because they've now invested in spending their time designing that and creating that and knowing this is how I'm going to live in this home. And that's when you can ask it. Provide them with checklists and white papers and things they can download that are not essential to your website and to them falling in love with your product. Like if you have a checklist of 10 things I need to think about while I'm visiting a model home, and I can download that checklist, I might give you my information for that after I've decided I'm in love with it. So you need to give your buyers different avenues, because they're all going to enter different ways into your website, and you can't gate it. I don't know, Anya, what do you want to throw in there?
I'm 100% on board with this. You want to give them all the information as much as possible. There's no such thing as overload of information these days. So, and we'll talk a little bit about price transparency, which I know is a touchy subject. A lot of builders still don't want to provide that price information to the buyers right up front. But the more you give them, the more they're able to self-qualify and say, yes, this is for me. Yes, the price point works for me. Yes, this floor plan works for me. Yes, these finishes work for me. And the more I say yes, the more I fall in love, the more likely I am to save that, because now, hey, you are a contender, so I'm going to reveal myself. So 100% do not gate your content. It is one of the worst mistakes that you can make right now. Let's talk a little bit about some of the other tools that we can utilize online to help engage buyers. And some of them are not so new. For example, chatbots have been around for quite a while, but now we are seeing a new generation of chatbots coming in that are AI enabled. So if you think about your old school chatbots, it was more of decision tree based, right? It's yes or no, or if they answer this, then I can give them this answer. So it's very limited. But now we are seeing AI being infused into chat, and that's going to continue to move faster and faster, and they're going to have more of a human-like conversations. So I'm a big believer on chat, especially during off hours when your OSCs are not online. So every single time I run statistics to see when our builders are experiencing the highest spikes of online traffic, no fail, every time it's Friday and Saturday night between midnight and 2 a.m. So I assume that nobody's online, between midnight and 2 a.m. as far as OSCs go. So if you don't have an OSC available 24/7, using a chatbot is a great alternative. What are your thoughts on chatbots, Leah?
I agree with you. I think I have two feelings on chatbots. The old school ones that you described drive me nuts, right? And as generative AI starts working its magic and people adopt those, I do think you'll have a better, more seamless experience for your buyer. I think that you do need something to engage those buyers in off hours. I mean, gone are the days that OSCs can work 24/7. It just doesn't happen. You're not going to be able to pay the labor or pay the people. So this is a great way to utilize technology to your advantage. Historically, we have said, and I have heard this number, and I have not seen it change across the board when I see my builders and I track their numbers, that if we take the unique visitors that come to our website each month and look at the number of inquiries we have through all platforms and channels, across all platforms, whether it's a phone call, whether it's a third-party lead, whether it's a website lead, that number usually comes in somewhere between 1 and 3% of the unique monthly visitors. That means there's 97% of the people visiting your website that are not submitting an inquiry in some way, shape, or form. And we've been okay with that for some reason, because it hasn't changed. I seriously, every year with every builder, with every month over a month, I haven't seen a difference. And sometimes I see it in the 0.5 range, in the 0.5 of lead generation of unique monthly visitors to that. So AI and chat and those sorts of things can give people options and avenues when they don't want to talk to a human, or they're there, at 2 a.m.
Yeah.
This gives them a way. And now we may be able to tap into that audience that's coming to our website. And even if we raise that up by 1 or 2%.
With interactive online tools, we see that number actually much higher than 1-3%. So
yes,
it makes sense because you are giving them something to engage with, and you're also giving them a reason to register because they want to save that information. So when you are using that interactive content, you'll definitely see higher conversion rates there. And I do want to touch upon a couple of other things that you can do to engage your customers online. So hopefully everybody by now has mobile optimized website. So it's essential for people on the go. We're about to get into the AI optimized website. So that's going to be a whole other conversation. But for now, mobile optimized is a must. Another thing I'd like to see on a builder's website is if you have smart home features, you want to make sure that you're really featuring those and you're talking and showcasing about that, because a lot of today's tech savvy buyers really interested in smart home technology. So I'd say that's one way to really hook your buyers and engage them online. You also want to make sure that you're providing social proof on your website. So we all know this from a personal experience, right? We're all shoppers. And if you don't see any reviews or any social proof, it's like, do I trust them or not? So you do want to make sure you incorporate those reviews and testimonials on your website naturally as much as possible so that you can build that trust. Anything else that we want to add to that list before we move on?
I just want to say, we're talking about different platforms, different touch points, different ways to engage with people, right? And it's really important that you spend money on tech and people, right? And we all know we have the International Builder Show coming up soon. And I was just listening to the head-to-head that Anya was supposed to be on, but John substituted in, and it was Keith McKinney and Kimberly Mackey talking. And they said something really strong that I really agree with, is that all the tech is going to be there on the floor at the International Builder Show. There's going to be so many bells and whistles and shiny objects for people. And so you want to make sure as you're spending your money on these things that you're integrating it all. This is what they were talking about. And this is so important, that it needs to integrate with what you've got. And you need to make sure it's relevant to the people that you have that are going to be using it. And it's what they need and want. And also, you're going to then come back and you're going to train them on it, because you can't just take tech out of the box, put it there and say, okay, go. You've got to teach people how it's beneficial to them, how to use it, how it's going to help them engage with their buyers. You've got to put it in, and you said it really well earlier when we were talking, you've got to brand it across, it can't look like they're going to 5 different things, even if they're hopping off to a different platform. It has to all be branded within your company. And you have to have targeted processes and touch points, because how someone comes in off of one channel is going to be different than how someone comes in off the other. And you can't have a generalized process.
Let's talk a little bit more about some of the best practices of creating that experience between all the different platforms, because I definitely have some thoughts on it.
Okay, go for it. Yes.
I think the key is really you want to utilize technology balanced with that human touch to almost recreate that in-person experience. And so when you have interactive content, when you have visualization and proactive outreach, that is really key here. So some of the best practices for engaging across different platforms and touch points. So number one is you want to make sure you are creating omni-channel experience. You want to make sure that your marketing department and the sales as well as OSCs are all using the same systems and their same processes, so that that handoff from technology to a human is a seamless, natural experience. Another thing I want to make sure that we're all doing is we're leveraging data. So again, one of the benefits of using interactive content is that every single time somebody clicks, it generates data, and that data is available to you to see, hey, what is my customer doing online? So that as an OSC, as a salesperson, when you have access to that data, you're able to create a proactive and personalized outreach that is relevant to your buyer based on the actions that they took and based on their interests.
Everything Anya just said is so important. And I want to reiterate that as you implement this different technology and these different processes, you can't use it to bypass your online sales counselor, right? You're not putting this in place of online sales. You still need a place where it all comes to, so that they can analyze the data, they can look at what's coming in and understand where it goes. Because, and I even see this with just having online appointment setting tools, right? All of a sudden, a builder has an online appointment setting tool and they think, well, that appointment's being set, I don't need to pay the OSC for that. They shouldn't get it. It should go straight to the sales agents. But the problem is that I'm going to use my husband as an example. If my husband had his way, he would go and view every $10 million log cabin in the mountains here in Denver, in Colorado, outside of Denver. And he would sign up and go see it. And there's no way in hell we can afford that. Okay. So you still need someone that's qualifying those appointments before they go out. That's setting a tone, humanity tone, to go into that appointment and create a seamless experience for the buyer. Because why do you want that person to go straight to your agent and then find that they can't buy? And if they've already been online and you're getting them ready to go to the model, you need to prep them for what the next step in their experience is going to be. So that's where training, tech, people, and targeted processes really come into play.
And as I mentioned already, so one of the things to tie this all together is make sure you have consistent branding from platform to platform to your sales center, and the same consistent messages across. And then you do want to utilize that proactive human outreach based on the data, so that you're not calling them with, are you still interested? You are calling them with, what are they interested in? You're pushing that conversation forward. So really just the key is to create that omni-channel experience that's seamless for the customer as you go from technology to human. So before we get into this, I know there's a lot of questions usually around what should we do with different sorts of leads? And I don't want to go down the rabbit hole with that, but self-touring is becoming more and more popular. So where, maybe they go directly from your website into, a model home or a home that's under construction where they can tour it independently. So Leah, what's the best practice for who should own that lead? Once that lead walks through a home in your community, should that go to the sales agent or should that lead be going to an OSC? What's your opinion on that?
So my opinion is that it should go to the online sales counselor. And I promise you that's not just because I train them, but it's because speaking with people like Lynn and Barrett at Enter Now and other people, they have said time and again that when those leads go to an online sales counselor team, they convert at a higher rate than they do when they are sent to the sales agents. Again, there's that different type of nurturing that happens when the lead goes to an OSC versus going straight to site. Now, it may be that the OSC is confirming they had a great experience. What did they like? What didn't they like? Do they need to offer them some other homes to see? Is it time to get them in front of an agent? Not every single person that self-tours a house is going to go straight to an agent and write a contract. And the agents want that immediate gratification. No offense to any agents that are on here, but they want that immediate gratification. So if they can't get that and they can't get a hold of that person, then they don't follow up. It gets dropped. The process isn't there. If an OSC has a process set up for that self-tour channel, a process set up for the interactive floor plan player, somebody playing with that, a process set up for the people who are coming in through third-party lead. There's all sorts of different ways to engage with people that are not intrusive and do not make you look like you're stalking them, right? But really help you understand where they are in their experience. And so that's why I say processes aren't dead, right? And we have to be flexible with them. We have to move and come in wherever that buyer, and that's why we have to engage the buyer where they start. If they start with a self-tour, that's where we need to engage them. If they start with an appointment online, that's where we need to engage them. If they're starting with a chat bot, we need to see what they're getting from that and figure out how to engage them from there.
Yeah, so with that, one thing that I would like to stress is for all of my on-site sales agents, like I remember when I used to sell homes, OSCs were still relatively new. And once in a while, I would get that appointment. And I was guilty of, you're so busy and you don't have a time to read what that OSC said about this appointment. So coming in, you want to make sure that you do take some time and actually figure out what this customer has been through already. So you're not starting with zero, right? You want to meet them where they are. So just so important.
Well, and I think that's all part of that teamwork. Like if you look at this process, it's not just a process for how to engage a buyer, but what do you need to be successful as from marketing all the way to sales? What do you have to do to be successful? First, be able to engage the buyer wherever they want to start. Have those tools to give them options and opportunities to discover who you are, right? Then you need all your people to have the skills and knowledge, all of them. And that's skills and knowledge of all of your technology. And I'm going to quote Haley from Novi Homes. I recently heard her on a podcast and she was saying, if for anyone that doesn't know Novi Homes, it's a great piece of technology as well. And she was saying that it's 2024 and she's mind blown by the fact that there's still agents that don't know how to use a CRM, that won't use a CRM. I mean, come on, Kimberly and Keith talked about it as well. We can't let that be an excuse anymore. Technology is here to stay. It's been around for a while. we're going to talk about that a little bit, but AI is definitely going to be a huge influence. And if you can't adopt the tools you have now, how are you going to survive as things continue to change in the building industry? So skills and knowledge, everybody on the team has to have it. There can't be any excuses anymore.
And
right?
I'd like to chime in here because so many builders implement tools online, but I'd like to argue that those tools are very much transferable to in person. Again, when I see some of the virtual tours, like it's not just because it's a virtual tour doesn't mean it's only for online engagement. When you have somebody coming into your model home and they want to see different options within that same model, but you're only showing this, that's a great way to pull out your virtual tour and show them, hey, this is how your home's going to be look different. if you choose that 2-story foyer, or if you choose the, the open living room as opposed to the closed off plan, or even color selections. Again, if you're utilizing interactive tools that allow you to see what that kitchen is going to look like with different countertops, I would literally bring your iPad, bring your computer with you as you're touring the home with your customer, and you can show them, you can ask them, hey, what's your favorite color? What color cabinets do you envision for your kitchen? You can pull it up right there and show them that's going to look like, so that again, they fall in love with it because they see that they're able to personalize that. So any tools that you have online, make sure you're really familiar with that and you know how to use that in person, because it's just a waste of money if you're only using it for your customers online.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I 100% agree. But as part of this process, we have to all have the same goals. We have to be teaching and training across platforms and across departments, right? We cannot be siloed anymore. I know you've probably heard that a million times, but it's still happening. It's still happening where the team, one side doesn't know what the other side is doing, and it creates friction and conflict, and it makes it harder to create a great experience for your customer. And ultimately, our goal is to sell houses. So we need those customers to really like us and engage. So teamwork and communication are so key in any process, technology, tool, anything that we're doing.
We're going to talk about AI in a little bit, but if you have systems that are siloed from each other, meaning that marketing can't see what the sales are doing, and the sales can't see what marketing is doing, and maybe the service department can't see, maintenance can't see, you got to make sure that all your systems are flowing together, because that data needs to flow across. As AI going to be here and it's going to be utilized very heavily, we want to make sure that AI has all the data and it sees, okay, where's the customer starting from, what's the middle, and what's the end, because AI can then optimize the customer journey according to that.
And that's where being flexible comes in, right? You've got to be flexible. You can't be set in one process. There's no way. Online sales is not the same now as it was when I was an online sales counselor. It's not the same. And I can't teach it the same way. And I can't tell builders to run it the same way. It's constantly changing. There's some foundational things that are always going to be the same about being an online sales counselor. But in order to be able to be that liaison, that crossroads between marketing, sales, and the buyer, you've got to understand everything that's going on, and you have to flex and change with the industry. And that is where being proactive versus being reactive comes in, right? And this is actually a conversation for leadership. The strategy comes from the top. Leadership comes from the top. I can train OSCs in the middle to do all these great things, but if there's not a cohesive strategy throughout a company, if there's not a cohesive thought process and an understanding what's happening with the people who are using the tools and technology. So all those people at the top have to understand what's going on with this technology. You can't just buy land and build homes and hope it'll all work itself out. Builders who build, that's what they love. They love buying land and building homes, and they figure the sales will figure it out. We're going to hire sales managers and we'll figure it out. But you've got to have a strategy in mind of how you're going to release communities, sell communities. You have all these amazing interactive tools. You can completely show an entire community that is really just actually dirt if you do it right. And you can pre-sell and release a community and have all these amazing things for people to visualize and see. Gone are the days where we have to sit in a trailer, right? I mean, who sat in a dirt trailer on dirt? I did.
Yeah,
So,
I have.
so we need to have that strategy, because I still see, and especially with the slowdown that we've experienced over the last year, I've seen this knee-jerk reaction. We got to sell homes. We got to sell homes. And things are happening in a way that decisions are being made up here, and then it's being pushed down onto, and it is the OSCs that end up hearing, okay, we're opening a community in a day. Start making appointments on that interest list you've had for 8 months. you can't do that. You've got to go sit in that seat and understand what's going on so you can create a better strategy. So you need to be proactive versus reactive. And that's what you've got to think of as all this technology is flying at you. How are you going to create an ecosystem, a cohesive ecosystem for your buyer and your sales team and your marketing to be able to promote your company, right?
Yes, so a couple of things I want to add here. I just recorded a podcast yesterday. It's going to be out in a couple of weeks. And my guest and I talked about moments mapping. So where it's so important when we're selling a new community to identify that customer avatar, right? Like who is that person who is going to be living in this community? And he talked about moments mapping. So you want to take the time to really figure out what are going to be those pivotal moments in this person's life as they're coming in to interact with your brand. So maybe the first moment is going to be when they land on your website. You know, what are they experiencing? What are they seeing? And the next moment is going to be when they're coming into your sales center. And what does that look like? So I really thought it was such a cool concept where not enough builders are spending the time to really figure out those key moments and how we can make those interaction moments so very special. And again, just taking that branding all throughout, right? Make sure that it carries throughout every single touch that this customer is experiencing with you. And then last thing I wanted to add here is incentives. So, you know, we've obviously gone through a little bit of a
There's
shaky
a lot of
road,
knee-jerk incentives.
a lot of knee-jerk incentives, a lot of calls on Friday before Christmas saying, hey, we need to, you know, sell 20 more houses to meet our quota for the year. Let's call them so they can come in on Christmas to sign the contract. It's like, you know, what do you think your customer is gonna think when you call them on Christmas Eve to say, you know, I need you to sign this right now. We're giving you, you know, $20,000 discount.
It's,
How
yeah,
much
I
value
got stories. I get what you're saying there. So,
So just be very careful. Like there's place for incentives for sure, but you want to make sure that you do it right and you're not leading with the incentive in the first place. You use it as a tool to close somebody when they're already sold, as opposed to like, oh, you know, welcome to community XYZ, and guess what? We're including, you know, a gourmet kitchen with our thing. So it's hard to come back from that. It devalues your brand. And now, especially as market starts to heat up once again, it could be difficult to come back from that.
well, and here's something I have to say about incentives, because OSCs get calls all the time saying, you know, from people saying, what are your incentives, right? And they feel like they need to answer that question. And the answer is, our incentives will depend on which home you actually choose. I don't want to pigeonhole you into one incentive that doesn't fit your needs, because our builder is flexible in what they're offering, and the agent, once you are on site, and this is where you do want to drive them on site, there are still times where the questions can't be answered online because they may come in asking about the McKinley floor plan, and when they fall in love with the Madison, when they get there, it's going to be a different answer, because the Madison is ready to go and may have some kind of discount on it because it's been sitting in inventory for a while, and the McKinley was still under construction. So as an OSC, your goal isn't to blurt out incentives. It's to say there's a variety of incentives. What is it that you're looking for? And I'll give that information to Anya when you're out there visiting our community, and she'll see how that fits in with what you fall in love with, right? That's what you need to do and find out. And that's how you utilize incentives to your advantage, and not be like feature dumping those incentives. And I think, again, this next one, be transparent, is so important. So often builders are still not giving information to, especially on new and coming soon communities, to online sales counselors. And they're sticking these on their websites, and there's no information around it, and they're not giving any sort of idea or general idea of what's going on. And there needs to be a much more strategic, we're going to go back to strategy, way of doing this. And we need to be able to be providing pricing and answers to people that they are looking for and not withholding from them. And that goes for communities that are open, communities that are coming soon. What range are they going to be in? At least give some price ranges on your website. Allow your OSCs to give pricing on base pricing and things like that. You never want to be pricing out a house online unless you have those tools, which will eventually come. If you have tools where people can put everything in and it connects back to your back office, and now it's telling them that that bump out is a $20,000 addition and that 3-car garage adds another 10,000 to the house, that's great. But OSCs shouldn't be doing that, because again, we're back to the McKinley or the Madison. If I tell you that the floors are $14,000 for hardwood floors throughout the McKinley, and you get there, the Madison is bigger and it's 20,000, you're going to say, well, Leah told me, right? And so it's all about what you fall in love with. But I can give you a range. Putting hardwood floors into any of our floor plans are going to go anywhere from 8,000 all the way up to 30,000, depending on the size of the home. What is your budget for options above and beyond our standard features, right? And that then you get an options budget. Well, I want to go about $80,000 above what I'm seeing online at most to get what I want. Great. You know what? You're going to get some of the things you want from what you told me, but you need to make a needs versus wants list, right? So there's all sorts of ways as an OSC, you can be that trusted advisor to create that great experience for that buyer once they finally call you up and ask you a question. The worst thing is when a buyer finally reaches out and picks up the phone and your answer is, I don't know. It can't be that. Everybody needs to be informed about what's going on. And if the answer is, I don't know yet because we don't have permitting for that community, blah, 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 you don't say, I don't know. You say, you know, that's an interesting question. We are still waiting on permitting for that community. These are some of the plans we have going forward. We don't have all of our floor plans solidified, but tell me more about what you want. Tell me more about what your time frame is. Would you be willing to wait if this community takes another 3 months to open? These are the things that you need to do in order to create that great customer experience. Anything you want to throw in? Sorry, Anya.
I have some things to throw in. This is a topic that I'm super passionate about, and I find the most resistance from our builders on it. So number one, if I'm looking for a house and I'm going to your website and the pricing is not there, I am not calling you. Okay. I'm not calling you. I am out. I'm going to the next website to see if they have pricing, because one, I don't have the time to call. I don't want to talk to somebody. I don't want to be embarrassed if it's out of my price range. So if you're not showing me even the base price, I'm out. Now, Inugo does have a system, like buy now, reserve now, where your customer can actually go through the entire process of picking the base, picking all of the options, and getting pricing online. So we connect it either to your ERP system, or sometimes we just hook it up to your spreadsheet that has, you know, all your options loaded into it. So we'll work with you. But the more information you can provide to your buyer, the better. Because again, in my mind, if I can see that, oh, I love this floor plan and it's in my price range, and I can build the options by falling in love with the colors, the selections, and then it's in my price range still, like, I sold myself. You didn't have to sell me. I already sold myself. This is why people spend more money on Amazon on average than if they go shopping in the store, because Amazon allows you to sell yourself. And this is the best way to shop. When people sell themselves, they spend more money. They're much more dedicated to buy whatever it is they want to buy. So that's one thing. And second thing is, you know, when you do provide option pricing online or even base price, like a lot of times I hear, well, I'm not gonna see this person if I give that out. Like, so to my point, yeah, you may not see as many people, because the people that you will see are going to be much more serious buyers, because those are the people that said, yes, it works for me. So your salespeople are actually going to spend time working with serious buyers, as opposed to working with 100 leads that may not even afford to be able to buy in your community. provide that online mortgage calculator. So if you have a mortgage calculator, they can select different types of programs, down payments, interest rates, and make that available so that they can see, as I'm adding that, morning room, that gourmet kitchen, whatever else options I'm adding in, I can see how that translates into a monthly payment. Because it is true, a lot of buyers don't have realistic expectation of what the price is and how does that translate into a monthly payment. And you can very easily solve that with an online calculator. So show more, don't be afraid to show it. It's a good thing, and it's going to save you a lot of headache at the end of the day.
I agree. I
So
agree.
I'm getting off my high.
Good. Well, you're about to get back on your high horse because
All right,
now
okay,
we're finally going to talk about how will AI affect OSC sales and buyers, right? And Anya knows I'm a little bit afraid of that whole Terminator thing, right? It's going to take over and robots are going to be ruling the world. But I mean, I have my thoughts on this, and I still believe the human connection is always going to be important. I know Anya does too. We've had this debate, but what are your thoughts, Anya? Like how will AI affect our buyers, our OSCs, our sales? Like we've talked a little bit about it throughout, but here's your place.
The AI factor is real, right? Like, so John Lee, our CEO at Inugo, he's been preparing for AI for years. He's built our whole business around AI, and even he was shocked by how fast AI is developing. I mean, if you think about ChatGPT, they're coming up on a year anniversary since they rolled it out to the
Only
public,
one
right?
year? I did not realize it's only 1 year.
Yeah, like last year at IBS, I showcased ChatGPT and I incorporated it into my presentation. And I think a lot of people at that point still didn't know what ChatGPT was. Hopefully now a lot of people are familiar with it. But there is no doubt that AI will affect every aspect of our lives. And IMF just came out with the figure. They said that up to 40% of all jobs in the United States will be affected by AI. So it will have an effect on your job, you like it or not. So I think the key is, how do we prepare for it? And what can you do to make sure that you make yourself more valuable than AI, or you learn how to work with AI to make yourself more valuable? So I think one of the best things that's going to come out of this is, ultimately, it's going to enable online home sales. For the longest time, the argument has been, oh, people don't want to buy homes online because it's too complicated. Well, guess what? AI, personal chat assistants, make it uncomplicated. They're able to break it down and explain every part of the process. It's not like the old school chatbot that was limiting to yes, no answer or directions. This new chat assistants are able to go into very in-depth conversations. And guess what? They're available 24/7. So I think it's a great thing for our industry. I don't know if you guys have heard, recently Amazon announced that they're going to start car sales online. So that's going online. Obviously, we know that there's a lot of car manufacturers that are selling cars online, but now it's going to Amazon. So guess what's going to be coming next after the cars? We're going to be buying homes online. And AI personal assistants that chat is able to answer all the intricate questions that I may not even be able to answer, or I may not be able to answer as fast as AI will be able to answer. As builders train their AI on their data, and this is where it's going to be extremely important that home builders keep their sales process online, because AI needs data. So if you're, only taking your customers so far online, and then the first chance you have, you take them offline by bringing them into the sales center, this is where, you could have that broken link. So when we say online sales, it doesn't mean not in-person sales. What I'm talking about is digitizing your sales process so that just like when you go to Home Depot, you are swiping the credit card at the end of the day, you're in person or you're online at Home Depot shopping on their website, swiping the credit card. But all of your items that you purchased, everything's digitized. And this is super important because, again, we want to see that clear picture of what the person did when they came to your website, what did they do in an interim, and then what were the final options that they selected when they checked out. And again, online does not mean not in person. I'm excited about AI because it will enable people who embrace AI to work smarter and not harder. For example, again, going back to the chat, if AI is going to have the chat enabled or even involve interactive online tools, then you as an OSC or you as a salesperson can actually spend time with more valuable prospects, so that let AI deal with the 100 prospects and you deal with the ones that are, maybe have the highest score, highest engagement score. You can sub in a person for that. Time management, right? You can automate a lot of the tasks from scheduling to appointment setting. So AI is going to be here to help. And as long as you embrace that, I think AI is going to only enhance your job and make your job a lot easier. Just like CRM, just like interactive tools, as long as you're actually using them, you're better off versus not. What are your thoughts on that, Leah?
I really do agree with you. I think that it's going to separate the people who are going to adapt to change, and people who aren't, who are going to keep sticking their head in the sand. We can't stick our head in the sand. We've got to understand that sales skills can be learned. Organizational mindset, tech brains, understanding things, looking at, analyzing, empathizing. These are all things that cannot be taught. And a lot of salespeople have relied on, and I see it all the time in interviews and on resumes. I'm a people person. But you've got to be more than just a people person in this day and age of sales. You've got to understand information technologies. You've got to understand all these things. OSCs have been learning this for decades, right? We have had to be the ones that adopted the tools, utilize them to do that. So it's really important for us to understand that it's not there to replace you. It's there to enhance your ability to get to more people, to get down to what they need quicker, and to be there for look, I don't think I'm old. Okay. I mean, I'm not that old, and I'm going to be around a lot longer. And there's a lot of people like me that still are not going to want to use chat bots only,
100%,
right?
100%.
I'm going to want to call somebody up. And so you as a builder need to be able, again, back to that meet buyers where they are, you're going to need to be able to create that human connection and have that well-trained, empathetic person that can have complex conversations with people. Because yes, while chatbots will maybe get there, and I know you believe it will, Anya, get there, it's still about information in, information out. And how many tools have I seen over the last 18 years that builders have said, I'm going to buy it, and then they don't put the right information on it, from CRM to everything else, and it's not used properly.
Right.
So the technology may be there, but you've got to learn how to use it, and you've got to have the people who can use it. So I'm with you on
AI
that.
is not there to hinder you. It's there to actually enhance that human connection. But you got to make sure, like Leah said, that you are using it, because from predictive marketing, from dynamic pricing, all of that is possible with AI. But if you're limiting the information, if you're limiting the data, but not using your systems, then you are going to hinder yourself with that.
Yeah, and that's why I think we need to be okay with using it together. I mean, I remember when Atlas RTX was brand new, right? And OSCs were terrified. Oh my gosh, is this going to take my job? And I remember the first demo I ever did with Atlas RTX. I said, oh, well, chatbots can become an assistant to OSCs the way OSCs somewhat assist sales agents. It really is not something to be afraid of, but something to figure out, how can you make it work for you? Because when you can show your leadership, you're making this work for you, you're still going to be there. And people want to talk to you. And there are going to always be the people who don't understand the technology and who think that thing that pops out of the side of their computer is for a coffee mug holder, right? We don't even have those things that pop out of the side of your computer. I mean, you don't even have discs anymore. I mean, it's going to be there for a while. There's going to be a crossover and people who need people. So while people aren't going away, we've got to prepare now, right?
And one of the things that I will say is that, you know, we've had several revolutions happening, like, you know, when we went from print to digital and then we went to mobile. One thing with AI is that it's going to happen much faster than the previous revolutions. And so the builders will have to adapt much faster. And I'm afraid right now that we're at the point where a lot of people still think that it's like a fad, that it's like, oh, it's what's the internet? Like, internet's no big deal, or like social media, it's like no big deal. Like, nobody's going to use that. So we're at the point where builders do need to learn about this and what's coming in the future. So one thing I do want to talk about specifically for builders is AI will change the way people search for homes. And this is very important because what's coming is AI enabled search. So AI enabled search is your ChatGPT, Claude, Bard. I mean, there's a ton of new systems every single day. It seems like a new search engine pops up that's AI enabled. And even Google announced that they are going to SGE, which is that search generative experience. So even Google is getting in the game with that. And what it means is, if many of you have experienced ChatGPT, for example, when I'm searching for, you know, what are the top 10 home builders in Minnesota, instead of giving me the links to the top 10, what it does is it's giving me an answer. It's going to say, oh, you know, Ryan Homes and Novi Home, whatever, you know, these are the top 10 guys. So it's going to actually give me an answer instead of the links. So what Google is doing now with SGE is and it's available now, I think, on most Androids. And so it's like an experiment they're rolling out right now, but it's going to roll out to everybody shortly. So when you go to Google, what you're going to see is when you type, again, top 10 home builders in my area, instead of giving you links, it's going to tell you an answer first. And then only below the fold, Google will actually provide the links to that. Now, what's really interesting is that there was a study done that looked at, okay, so if I use a regular Google search engine and I type 10 top home builders in my area, what comes up? And if I use this SGE service and I type in the 10 top builders, what comes up? 94% of the time, Google SGE did not return the same results that the organic Google returned. That means that 94% of you are going to be left out of this AI search. So right now, what you can do is prepare your content for what we're calling now AIO, right? Instead of SEO, search engine optimization, it's now AI optimization. So your data, all of the content needs to be smart content, because when your content, you're no longer really providing that content for the buyer at the end of the day, right? You're almost providing that content for AI, because if AI can't find your content, if AI cannot read your content, it's not going to be brought to your customers. And if you're not being found online, that's going to have tremendous implications for your business. So one thing I will urge you is, if you're a home builder, if you're an owner, if you're marketing, look into this. Start researching AIO. How can I make my content AI friendly instead of search engine friendly? Because that is going to be a huge change. You know, if Google is shifting in that direction, like, this is where it's going. It's not just these new AI search engines. Like, Google is doing it. Every single search engine is implementing AI, and that's going to have major effects.
Well, and you know, it's funny because I want to say this is the future, but we also have to look a little bit at the past and what this means because people still react. And we have been saying content is king since I started Blue Gypsy Inc. in 2010. In 2010, I started out as a content writer. I wrote a lot of website content, all that. We were writing for search engines and people. Now we've got to think about AI search engines and people. And like, because, you know, some search engines will still function the same way. They'll be the AI, but you still have to be people friendly and people forward as well. So I think, you know, like you're saying, it's going to need that, but also below the fold for those really young people on here, that below the fold is something that you probably don't know because it's from a newspaper, you know, those paper things. Anything below the fold wasn't important. Anything above the fold was. And so we've got to stay, we've always said search engine, you know, we need to stay on page one. Now we're going to need to stay relevant within the area of AI, right? We're going to have to be staying relevant on that. And I think that, again, it's just like adopting online sales counselors. A lot of people think it's only been around for 5 or 10 years. It's been around for 20 years. Online sales counselors have been around for 20 years on builders' websites. Early adopters are the ones that have really fine-tuned it and utilized it and made it sing for them. I mean, OSCs can account for 50, 60, 70% of overall sales coming through them when the program is done correctly. But the same thing's going to happen with AI. I get people coming to me all the time saying, oh my God, I realize I need an online sales counselor. And they want it yesterday. The same thing's going to happen to you with AI if you don't take your head out of the sand now and start figuring out how to integrate it across your marketing, your online sales, and your sales, right? Because that is not something that you're going to want to play catch up with 20 years from now, just like builders are today.
Right. And as I said earlier, the AI revolution is going to, it's sweeping much faster. So just, you know, educate yourself on it as a sales agent, educate yourself as an OSC, look into the tools that are available to you from ChatGPT. Claude is my favorite one. So Claude.ai, check that one out. That's my go-to one, but there's a ton of them where you can make yourself better, faster, more efficient, get your work done faster, and make yourself irreplaceable to your company, because companies are going to look to minimize the headcount by maximizing the technology, and those people who embrace the technology will ultimately be the winners in this. So Leah, thank you so very much for joining me today for this discussion. I am always excited. I'm always learning from you every single time we get on a call. So if you guys please reach out to Leah. If you don't have an online sales counselor now, she can help you find one. She can help you train one. So she'll do all the hard work for you to make sure you have a successful online sales counselor program set up. Thank you so much for joining us today. Please feel free to share with your friends and colleagues. Thank you again for being here with us today, and have a great day.
Thanks, Anya.
Bye.